Hello and welcome to a slightly different corner of my room. So I have been once again doing some theater. I have been doing The Producers. And in tribute to one of the songs in that play, it's bad luck to say good luck on opening night, I'm going to be telling you 5 of my favorite theater superstitions and why, despite what people have been telling me recently, these superstitions are an important part of theater's history and kind of fun. So number 1, a bad dress rehearsal means a good opening night. This one's relatively simple. If you have a bad dress, that means that you go home and you focus and you come into opening night ready to concentrate and you don't assume that you've got it. Whereas a good dress rehearsal sometimes means that people get complacent and they come in thinking they've got it in the bag, at which point things fall apart. Number 2, my personal favorite. Whistling on stage. Whistling on stage is bad luck, and it is bad luck for what used to be a very good reason. In the days before instant communication via intercoms, communication between the rigging and the stage floor used to happen by a series of coded whistles, a habit taken from rigging in ships. These coded whistles were very important and very detailed, which meant that if you were just randomly whistling on stage and somebody in the rigging heard you and you happened to be accidentally whistling the code for dropping a sandbag, you got a sandbag dropped on your head, which tends to be bad for the health and pretty bad luck. Number 3, ghosts. Ghosts are very common in older theaters. Just about every older theater has one. Honestly, they're kind of a badge of honor. If your theater doesn't have a ghost, you must be missing something interesting happening in your theater back in the past. My personal favorite theater ghost is named Fred, and he resides at the Theatre Royal in Hobart, Tasmania, and as well as doing all of the typical theater ghost things, such as shouting from the wings and appearing on stage and appearing in the audiences during rehearsals, he actually saved the house. A fire broke out quite a few years back in the theater when nobody else was home, and the fire curtain dropped despite nobody being in the building. And the fire curtain is a very large fireproof curtain that it cuts off the audience area from the stage area and made sure that while the fire did damage the stage area of the house, the heritage listed very beautiful audience area and all its ornate decorations was saved, and that the house could be renovated and the Theatre Royal could continue as the oldest operating theatre in Australia. And without Fred dropping the curtain, the Theatre Royal would not be in operation today. The ghost myth has actually resulted into subsequent myths related to ghosts, which are also quite useful. Number 1 is the ghost light. This essentially happens when the theater is dark. If no lights are on in the theater, there is always one ghost light placed center stage and always burning throughout the night so that the ghost can see. Which is also useful when you come in the morning and there's one light burning so you don't trip over props and staging and various other things that have been left around in the theater. The ghosts also result in the night off. Every theater has one night off when the house is dark, which is said to enable the ghosts to have one night to put on their own plays, to have the house to themselves. And this typically takes place on a Monday after a rigorous weekend of matinees, so everybody else enjoys it too. Number 4, not wishing good luck in a theater, because it is very bad luck to say good luck inside a theater, which at its core is a typical don't jinx it superstition, but the things we say instead of bad luck also have a reason. So the most famous one is, of course, break a leg, which actually has nothing to do with actors breaking their legs. It's referenced in several different ways. Number 1 is bowing. When you bow, you typically bend your knee, breaking your leg. In ancient Greece, one of the other origins is that they used to stomp their feet instead of clapping their hands, and if your audience liked you enough, they would stomp their feet so hard they broke their legs. In Elizabethan times, they did the same with thumping chairs on the ground, so if they were thumping it so hard they broke the chair's leg, That was good because you were doing your job. In ancient Rome, people would yell break a leg to gladiators that they liked, wishing that they didn't die, they just broke their legs. And one of the also more common ones is the fact that the curtains at the side of stages, the long thin curtains, are typically called legs. So when you walk through those curtains, you break the leg. Also, instead of saying good luck, you can say, in French or in opera, I think it's used most commonly, is merde. There's another Portuguese expression that also involves shit. The reason for this is people used to be conducted to the theater via horse-drawn carriage. And if lots of people were coming to your show, horses would be depositing lots of shit, which was a good thing. And here in Australia, we use a term called chukkas, to wish people luck in the theater, which, as well as being a fairly silly Australian expression, like many of ours are, again relates to something important, which is the fact that chook is an Australian term for chicken, and if your show was doing well, you would get to have chicken for dinner, which, when the phrase was invented, was a rarity. So, number 5, the final of my favorite theater superstitions, involves Macbeth. It is very bad luck to say the word Macbeth, or indeed many lines from Macbeth, in a theater. The play is typically known to be cursed. There are 2 ways of looking at why this came about. The first is the more supernatural ones, because the rumor goes that Shakespeare stole some of the lines directly from a coven of witches, and they cursed his play as a consequence because they didn't like the way they were portrayed. One of the other rumors is that the props master of the original production of Macbeth stole the cauldron that he used from a coven of witches, and they cursed the play. One of the other ones is that Shakespeare himself put a curse on the play so that nobody else would be able to direct it correctly. More real-world versions of why Macbeth is considered a cursed play is because of the large number of injuries that have been attributed to the rehearsal and production of this play. Typically because this is one of the plays with the most stage sword fighting that is commonly done, because there's one particular very large sword fighting scene, so the large amount of sword fighting does result in a larger number of injuries. Also, a lot of houses and theatrical companies had a tendency to shut down directly after doing Macbeth. This has contributed to the fact that it is a very popular production, and people tended to put it on as a last-ditch effort to pull their company out of bankruptcy, and frequently didn't work, which resulted in a lot of companies shutting down directly afterwards. And that's the thing about all of these superstitions. Yes, they're silly superstitions, and whistling on stage won't destroy a production, and saying Macbeth in the theater won't result in it being, a complete catastrophe. But all of them have history, and all of them are a shared language between people who are passionate about theater. And it's kind of a tradition to accidentally say Macbeth in the theater and be forced to go outside and run around the theater, or spit 3 times, turn around 3 times and curse, whichever your company's preferred method of erasing the curse of saying the name is. It's saying the Scottish play instead of saying Macbeth, not whistling, not saying good luck. They're a shared language, they're a shared bond between people who are passionate about theater and the culture that surrounds theater. And just discounting them because they're silly superstitions kind of takes the fun out of it and removes some of our own history, because none of these things sprang out of nothing. They all have a reason for being there. And remembering the reason and remembering the superstition are connected. And that's why I really like theater superstitions, and you'll never catch me whistling on stage, and I'll glare at people who say Macbeth in the theater even if they think I'm being dumb. Because it's a connection to our past, and it's a way of remembering where these oral traditions that we're passing on in producing these plays and putting them on came from. And it's really important to me, as important as a part of this world and this act that I adore.